Hi, everyone. I wanted to share some information about our international colloquium from corruption to quackery, fraud in higher education, science, and scholarly publishing. This is a working title, and we may adapt it as we dive further into the work. A couple of you have reached out to me and asked me how you should be framing your papers and how we can have our papers resonate with one another. So I wanted to provide a couple of slides with some background about how this colloquium came into being. The project started with some work that I was doing with a colleague named Jamie Carmichael, who can't join us for this colloquium, but she and I worked on a project called Fake Degrees and Fraudulent Credentials in Higher Education. As part of that work, we started to kind of trace some of the history around diploma mills. That's a jumping off point for some of the other points that I'll cover in just a moment. But for now, I wanted to share this timeline with you in case it's of interest. So we were able to trace back diploma mills in the United States to the US Bureau of Education, identifying diploma mills as a problem as far back as the 1880s. And diploma mills could include both fraudulent colleges, fake degrees, etc. By the time we were into the early 1900s, international diploma mills were already a problem, with the US uncovering international diploma rings more than a century ago, mostly done by mail order fraud at the time. Canada lagged behind in terms of our understanding of diploma mills and fake degrees, and we didn't really have too much that we were able to find in Canada until about the 1970s. And then it was covered in the news, and there was a couple of, or maybe half a dozen or so, fake degree companies operating in Canada. About a decade after that, the FBI in the United States got involved, led by now retired FBI Special Agent Alan Ezell. And Alan Ezell was one of our collaborators on the Fake Degrees project and also helped us to connect some of the dots that we'll show you in the next slide. The internet catalyzed the problem, as it has done with other kinds of fraud in scholarly publishing, etc., and then really basically created a global industry happening at speed and at scale. 1999 is a significant year because it was a year of what we called St. Regis University allegedly selling their first degree. And that became sort of a, if you will, like a hallmark of what fake universities looked like on the internet. This was studied and investigated again by the FBI team led by Alan Ezell. And they talk a lot about St. Regis University as a fake university. And their kind of key learning from that is if you ever walk into a doctor's office and there's a parchment on the wall from St. Regis University, turn around and walk away. Then we can fast forward to the late, 20 teens with Operation Varsity Blues in the United States, connecting admissions fraud to standardized test scores, varsity admissions, varsity sports, as well as bribery, fraud, and corruption. And then in 2023, Jamie Carmichael and I started to, we published our book, but we pulled together a group of people, some of whom are included in our symposium, some of whom have moved on to other projects, and we've brought new people in. What we learned from doing that project and that book, mainly from the work that Alan Ezell had done in some of his writings, was that there were connections between the companies that sell fake degrees, fraudulent credentials, admissions fraud documents, fake transcripts, fake admission letters, fake recommendation letters, etc. The companies that then engage in contract cheating, and then this was confirmed for us when we were at the 2023 European Network for Academic Integrity Conference in Derby, England, and Brandon and Darcy came and presented on their work in the University of New South Wales that really connected those dots for us, as well as to admissions fraud. And so we learned that there can be sort of a one-stop shop kind of company offering all the same kinds of services, starting with admissions fraud, fake or fraudulent admissions documents, then leading into contract cheating. Some of the same companies can then sell fake and fraudulent diplomas as well. At the time, a little bit more tenuous for us was the connection to scholarly paper mills. Even 2 years ago, there wasn't quite as much evidence, but the further we dig into scholarly and scientific paper mills, the more we see that they operate like contract cheating companies, operating at scale, operating mostly in an internet-based environment by private companies, difficult to get an assessment of the evaluation of the companies. But we have a good sense that if a company is running a paper mill, a scholarly paper mill, then why wouldn't they also be engaged in contract cheating services? So one of the reasons we wanted to bring folks together for this colloquium is to help us connect the dots. And so some of the folks who are coming to the colloquium have already started to do that. And this infographic that's from 2023 may get revised during our colloquium. So we know that Reese Richardson is working on patent fraud and its connection to paper mills, potentially to contract cheating and other kinds of research misconduct. So, and we know that Michael Draper has been working with the Council of Europe on education fraud in Europe. What we wanted to do with this symposium was bring together some of the best minds in the world who are working on topics, but who may not have had a chance to read one another's work, to have conversations, and to ask ourselves the questions of what might the connections be between these different elements: contract cheating, admissions fraud, paper mills, fake degrees, patent fraud, other kinds of fraud in science, education, and scholarly publishing. We're hoping and wanting that this colloquium will allow us to come together, ask important questions, mostly about the connections that might exist. What evidence do we have? How do we collect more evidence to help show the connections that exist, if any? And what might be some concrete recommendations for research and policy going forward? For example, we know that contract cheating is illegal in various forms in Australia, in the UK, in Ireland. It's not illegal in the United States. It's not illegal in Canada. But how might we help to inform educational policymakers around these important topics? And then finally, what are some concrete calls to action? Ultimately, we would like this to be an action-oriented colloquium in addition to knowledge sharing, and we'll be looking for ways to mobilize our knowledge and then consider next steps. We're looking forward to having you all at the University of Calgary, July 2nd and 3rd for this invitational international colloquium. I just wanted to give a shout out that the symposium is supported by the University of Calgary's Workland Research Professorship. I hope that this brief video has given you a little bit of insight into the how and why of the colloquium, how we're bringing people together, and how excited we all are to welcome you to Calgary in July. Feel free to reach out with any questions, and we look forward to seeing you soon.